Welcome to CMO Confidential, the podcast that takes you inside the drama, decisions, and choices that go with being the head of marketing. Hosted by 5-time CMO Mike Linden.
Back to part 2 of the It's a Bird, It's a Plane, Holy Shit, It's AI.
Adam, you want that one?
Sure. So on the trough point, my first thought is we interviewed probably the leading example of a company that has completely adopted an AI first mindset and practice, which is Moderna, the vaccine biotech company. Yeah. And they went out, they've always wanted to be AI first, even before Chat GPT was a thing. Like that was a part of their reason for being, was to use technology and AI to help solve some of these biotech questions so they could help, cure diseases and prevent diseases. That's their mission. And they've in a weird way, they've been AI first from the beginning. They went out and sought out the leading AI digital transformation expert in the world. And it's not Andy and I, we aspire to be that, but and it was this guy named Bryce Chalamel who was working at Google. Yeah. Who had come from BCG. He lived in France. He was a professor. He wrote books, and then he ultimately led the Google Cloud's AI transformation group. And him and his team were plucked out of Google to go work at Moderna to lead an AI transformation. And they got a head start on this. They got educated. They ran hackathons. They developed a generative AI champions team. They did all these practices to get 3,000 of their 5,000 employees using AI every single day, and to make it not just a random active AI kind of thing, but actually like a fully blown scaled AI first organization where they were harnessing AI. And what he said to us was, he said, all these people are like saying that is there too much hype about AI? And, is it, and he said to Andy and I, he goes, we're over on the other side of the trough of disillusionment of the hype cycle saying, hey, everybody, we're over here and it's real. And they claim to be able, they claim on their, they published a thing online, a case study, if you will, or customer story online that says they feel like they can do 5 times the amount of product marketing and product development that they could have done before they became AI first. And they're probably doing the work of 100,000 people or so with a 5,000-6,000 person organization. And that's when he was saying it's real if you adopt it. The level of like innovation and productivity gains are real across every function. That's what, when I think about the question of like being on the other side of the trough, I think about what Bryce was telling us about where Moderna's at. And I think it was just a good case study to keep in mind that, if you embrace it and invite it to embrace AI and get curious and get literate and really try and infuse it in what you're doing, it can have this, profound effect. And you can be one of the companies that has a competitive advantage as this technology is speeding along and the capabilities are getting better and more fascinating. You want to be a company it's like surfing, right? You want to start paddling now, you don't want to be paddling as that wave. And unfortunately, the wave isn't going to be probably coming from behind you. It's going to be probably coming at you.
There you go.
Something as powerful as this,
So this says you got to start practicing and experimenting right away. And you can't outsource this to like 1 or 2 people. You got to plug it in. And we'll talk more about this in a minute, because I want to flip now into marketers. So after AI has whatever it's going to do, but we'll put it in the positive light, saved society, cured cancer, created a Star Trek-like intelligence intergalactic foundation. What kind of impact is it going to have on marketing and agencies?
I don't want to do all the talking. I mean, it's probably going to impact some jobs in marketing. It's going to impact jobs across every function, right?
Right.
And some functions are going to get impacted more than others. Like there are some functions, and I'm not trying to be whatever, Pollyannish or whatever the right word is about this. Like it's actually like, there's going to be disruption. And, frankly, Andy and I, we're probably not going to be necessary, as I nervously laugh about it, in a few years. Like there's a real, it's like every knowledge work is going to get disrupted. As a marketer, though, I think there's a real opportunity with AI because this isn't something that like today you can just like spin up an AI marketer that's just gonna, and trust me, Andy and I, we're working on a thing called Spock at our company. It's a AI marketing expert platform where we're trying to see if we can create like a great platform to help marketers. Yes, SPOK. And
Oh, rats! I thought it was.
that's okay, but yeah, that's the idea. And the idea is it's not easy, right? You don't just go wave a magic wand yet and say, we don't have AGI yet. It's not just as simple as like, hey, do all this stuff for me. And so there's a real opportunity for marketers to get AI literate, to get in the flow and start experimenting, like we said, because I think what's going to happen is that personally, that the job of marketing is going to change. I don't think it's going to eliminate the need. I mean, companies are going to still need to do marketing. In fact, marketing might be more important than ever in the age of AI with content everywhere. And,
Oh, we think so too, at least
yeah,
from our show. And we have one show called Will Your Next Best Customer Be an AI Bot? Because if the bots don't find you, customers aren't there running around doing search anymore.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So consumer behavior is going to, Andy, maybe we can talk about that. Like consumer behavior is going to change radically because of this, which means as a marketer, your job is more necessary than ever. But that doesn't mean your job's not going to change. I mean, think about my job as chief digital officer at Starbucks. Like there was no such thing as a chief digital officer when I started, right?
right.
And it wasn't the disruption that came from digital meant that people, it just changed the nature of the job. You had to sort of understand how to connect dots differently. And I think that's true now with AI and marketing. I do think it's about getting literate, getting proficient, getting your organization to at least embrace it on some level so you can experiment with it and then figure out how to make your job better, easier. I've never met a marketer that has all the resources they need. So my guess is that the productivity enhancements that AI give are going to really be a blessing in certain cases. And yes, it will be disruptive. And so I think there's going to be either marketing leaders, marketing individual contributors, and agencies that are going to realize like I need to be in that Venn diagram circle that says I'm experimenting with it, I'm literate, and I'm sort of surfing with it. Not somebody who's sort of resisting it.
Can I add to that?
And if you can also write in agencies.
Yeah, so I will. So to the point of like I'll call it the paradox or contradiction of Sam Altman's quote that 95% of marketing as we know it will be completed by AGI within 5 years' time, approximately. Which would make, whenever we say that, which would make everyone that's listening to this podcast nervous in their and fear-driven about their job. So that's like, clench. No. On the counter to that, if you think about what AI enables, what we talked about just moments ago, it certainly enables a tremendous amount of content, like every aspect of the multimodal, the text, the audio, the visual. Now an explosion of creativity allows content to go through the roof at very low cost. And to the point where synthetic influencers have been born and they're getting millions of followers. Synthetic bands are forming with synthetic music, and they're getting millions of followers. So those that, as you've got that content and explosion of creativity occurring, all of that sort of empowers the marketer, and it raises the need for being smarter and more strategic about marketing in the age of AI, because you need to stand out, even the need for it to stand out and be differentiated about. And oh, by the way, we're in the internet age where the switching costs, like TikTok,
are almost zero. Yeah.
They are zero. Like if you're not making an impact within 5 seconds, oh, next channel, please. Like 5 seconds, maybe. So the people that are able to deploy the tools and the creativity in ways, and oh, by the way, the example I used of TikTok and make it viral and making it agenda, the people that understand what's capable, it's much more of a composer. And I actually think that the that drives a whole new realm of what it means to be a marketer. To Adam's point, the job of marketing will change. And I'll go further to say that, like, um, those that can deploy marketing to actually win the game of
Right.
marketing for their company, which means increased personalization. Ultimately, the message that Mike that would resonate with you would be different than the message that would resonate with
Right.
me. And working with AI to have the right creativity deployed and the systems deployed in a way that it actually drives sales. And you that from all that, you actually have a lot of talk in the venture industry about the birth of they extrapolate and go, oh, at some point there'll be an individual person that creates $1 billion company because
Right.
they just manage AI and afford. I think we're a long way from that. However, I think you are going to see really powerful creative teams, and and I think it totally affect, like, the definition of what an agency, a marketing agency does. I think AI really puts a test on them, and they're going to need to transform what an agency does. Do I think people still need help in managing all this? Yeah, we talk to business leaders and marketers every day, and they're like, they go, oh, this is a neat tool for creating a blog post, but they really don't understand the tsunami of change that's coming. And they also don't understand, even if they do, they start to understand it. A, it instills fear. B, it's like, where do I even begin? And I think there were real, like, in our book, we try to answer that, real steps that you can be taking now, as a marketer, to start understanding for yourself and start planning and instituting change into
I
your
want to talk
business
about that in a
processes.
minute, but I want to stay in this and say, look, okay, so if I'm out there and I want to get an AI vendor, or I want to convince my company to do it, how do I even go about evaluating vendors the right way and then telling non-believers or slower adopters how I'm measuring the impact, especially people that want AI, ROI on everything I do? Give me how do I even pick the right vendor and measure the impact if I'm bringing someone in?
Well, on the vendor side, we get that question a lot, and it's a really good question. I think it goes to there's a there's a first step you need to take as a leader, whether you're a marketer or CEO or whatever. Like, for organizations, you have to have some in your organization. There needs to be a center of AI literacy and proficiency. It doesn't have to be every single employee on day one. And I think this concept of, like, there's a bit of a crawl, walk, run that might be necessary, and different companies have different cultures. However, there needs to be a center of AI literacy and proficiency in your company. Now, you can call that an AI council, you can call it an AI champions team. It might be one person, it might be a 20-person AI council. The point is that group or person or persons has to invest at least, a month or two right now, like, getting AI literate and proficient. They don't have to become experts, but they need to be, like, listening to the right podcasts, taking a boot camp, doing a workshop, like, understanding enough about the contours of AI and the trajectory of it, and staying abreast of it. So then, for that reason, if you get to that place, which is not that hard, it takes about a month or two. It doesn't take, you don't have to hire Google's AI transformation expert to do it. It could be a part of somebody's job. It could be a part of the CMO's job. It could be a part of the CIO's job. It could be a group of people that are young and old and mixed and passionate about AI. Once they get to a baseline of AI proficiency, it's like riding a bike. All of a sudden you just do it. Meaning you're up to speed, you understand it, you have an intuition about it, you have a feeling for it. And then when you're talking to a potential vendor, because remember, you're talking about a potential vendor, Mike, every single piece of software that's used in the enterprise is going to have, if not already today,
Look, and
has
every
some
consulting
AI.
company already is saying we understand this. So
Every single company, there's not a piece of enterprise software you're going to use in marketing or any function that doesn't have some AI widget or AI copilot or AI assistant or AI whatever. And so you're already having to assess that with all of your current vendors, let alone all these startups that are going to come at you with these wrapper apps that are going to say, hey, I've got this cool thing. You just need to be able to go, cool, let me take a look at it. And you assign it off to someone on the council or whatever, and you take a look at it. And you can just, you have to look at like, who's the back, do they have, who's behind them, what technology they're using, see a demo, and you'll be able to suss out like, all right, this, and
But
by the way,
it is practice due diligence versus, I read a book and I can do this.
You can't fake that. But what I'm here to tell you is that it's not like a multi-million dollar expenditure as a company to get to that point. But it requires a level of focus and a mindset shift. So in our book, we talk about what is the common trait of best practice in our case studies of companies that have been able to get to at least that first basic step. Is that they had executive sponsorship, they got some little bit of a center of AI literacy and proficiency going, and they effectively committed to doing that. And then at that point, they were able to sort of take that and run with it. And that includes assessing vendors. It includes figuring out what their AI use policy should be and how they should do experiments and how they should do road mapping and all that.
And what else is in that playbook that you would share with our listeners today? Because I like those 3 steps and the console, but like,
yeah, I mean, Adam just talked about the
right.
AI console. I mean, step one is at the C-suite level, get proficient yourself, right? Like, so we have a whole, like, this is not AI is not the kind of technology that I think you want to outsource. You can't just hire an agency to go do it for you in the way that you could say
Right.
social media, etc. So start playing with the tools yourself and come up to speed. And the way we what does that mean? That means get a license to Chat GPT, probably get a license for your team to one of the large language models, and get the employees start moving on their own journey of productivity enhancement. And really what that means is getting through the first 10 hours of use, because we're finding that in general, even still, while it's been the fastest adopted technology in history, the level of use and understanding is low in the business world. And so get proficient, which means understand how to prompt, understand what the tool is capable of, generally get your mind around it. Get a council in place. And then the next thing is the council, as it proliferates, we basically go, okay, like choose one area where one or two, but choose one area where you think you can have where it may help your business. And whether that be customer support or some marketing task. And every time, like, executives always ask us, and people look too early for ROI. And I think in general, when people do the first step and do the 10 hours, if they're not seeing like, oh my gosh, this saved me
they could have a
5
holy
hours.
shit moment. Yeah.
If they don't have
their own holy
like,
shit moment.
yeah, you have every person that we've put and said, hey, do something for your do a job for your family or your children or for work. And they try to do that and they turn to the large language. I'm just using Chat GPT because it's the predominant one, but there are others. Claude is fantastic. And now Google is quickly on the rise with Gemini. Choose one, we don't care which one, and start to do a job that you want to do. If you don't, everybody has an aha moment as they're doing that. Whoa, look at that response. And they also realize some of the limitations. As you do that we say, okay, now choose an area in your business where you can actually have a productivity win, and don't look for ROI too early in that process. And the main reason is like you have to give people the opportunity to experiment, and it takes a little bit of time, but the ROI is so clearly there. I mean, I think that's going back to earlier in our conversation when Bruce from Moderna said, look, I'm on the other side of the trial, looking back at the people who are going, is this hyped or overhyped? Like looking back going like, what are you waiting for? Because they're seeing 5x kind of productivity gains. It's insane not in all areas and not without mess and not without failure, but it's incredibly the ROI is so intuitive. It's like you're paying $20 a month per user, and you're getting thousands of dollars worth of productivity gains.
Yeah.
My
It's
holy
an
shit
IQ
moment
test.
was my holy shit moment was when I had to design a picture like that I wanted to make. I want to send a funny picture to a friend, and it could do just about anything in seconds. And I thought this would have taken any good creative team, it would have taken a day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was like, holy shit. And I don't want to let the ROI point go, because you both said something really interesting. It's kind of like trying to calculate the ROI of electricity. And I want you guys to talk about that a little more, because I think the Moderna thing is leading to that. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
basically saying, don't be crazy stupid about this thing.
Yeah, we got that. We actually got that quote from Bryce at Moderna when he said
totally.
that. He
Okay.
Yeah,
said,
that's not our full quote to Bryce.
All right.
yeah,
Well,
to that point, let's talk about ROI. And Andy's right. Like, people are too quick to. So it's funny with the word ROI, because first of all, it doesn't cost you very much to get proficient and to use the actual tools. So in the strictest sense of the word ROI, it's funny because you're talking about investing, a portion of some people's time to get up to speed on one of the most important, if not the most important technologies that are coming into the world, and spending $25 a month on some
right.
enterprise level thing. And if you use it right, you're probably already going to see, and there's studies that have proven this, if you use it right, you're going to see, call it 20+% productivity gains across every function that's using it right. So for starters, the ROI on that, as a strict matter of ROI, is astronomically high. But that's not even like, that's funny. That is like talking about the ROI of electricity or computers, because to Bryce's point, because what we're talking about, that's just talking about what you just talked about, making a picture faster.
Yeah.
Not that you can't make a picture right now. It's just that you'd have to, the tools and the people and the time. What we're talking about, what Andy and I are talking to we're learning the case studies that we have seen, the 20% to 40% productivity gains that could lead to 10 to 15% EBITDA improvements across an organization. That's actually kind of becoming kind of table stakes to the way we think about ROI. In the book, we talk about a case study of a company called Suzy that actually the CEO got proficient himself, understood, got literate, and right away was like, oh, I can use Chat GPT, in this case, it was Chat GPT, to create an unlock in my sales process. So you start to realize it's not just about productivity, it's about either higher quality output or some unlock of something that was just beyond your reach. And so like that's when things get really wild, because in that case study, for example, what he did, and we talked about this in the book, is he actually realized he had all this data. He said, I have all this data. And what he was referring to is that I think he used a sales software program called Gong, I think, and it was transcribing and categorizing every single sales and account management call. His team used Slack, right? So he had all these transcripts, and he was like, wait a minute, I could feed those into, I could sort of jerry rig using Zapier, like feed those into to ChatGPT and into a program that basically I can take my own domain knowledge of what's a good sales call, what's a bad sales call, what's a risk for churn, what's a high propensity to close. He had this in his own mind because he's built this sales organization over years, and he was able to take his own domain knowledge, combine it with the data he had with the transcripts and ChatGPT, and he came up with a sales agent. It's not really, kind of sales bot that would basically take all the calls real time that his sales and account management team was having and create a Slack or Teams or whatever based alert system that would allow him to have a much better rate of close and a much better rate of preventing churn. And he did so without having to like fire a bunch of people or hire a bunch of people. He basically, I think he said he tripled, I think in the book he said, right, Andy, he said he tripled his sales. He tripled his sales without having to add any salespeople, or any account reps, whatever. So it's an example of, you think about the ROI in terms of productivity lift, but a key part for your audience to think about that we've learned is that every company has their own domain knowledge, and that's something that Chat GPT doesn't have as well as you do. So you got to combine that. If you get AI literate and you do the steps we're talking about, you find that you can combine your domain knowledge expertise of your company with the AI, with the data, right? And that's how you get these unlocks, and that's where the real ROI magic comes from. And that's so there's both this sort of always on productivity lift and um, profit improvement and throughput improvement, and then there's these breakthroughs that only you'll be able to come out with. And we talked to in our book, our last chapter was with Ethan Mollick, the Wharton professor who's sort of a guru in the space, and he wrote a book called Co-Intelligence. He's incredible follow. He has a blog, he has a book. He's kind of the guy to listen to in a lot of these cases in terms of applied AI for ROI across a number of industries. And we asked him to read our book, and the chapter was, Professor, kind of critique our book. Tell us where we got it right, where we got it wrong. And as Andy likes to say, as a good professor did, he sort of chastised us and said, yeah, your playbook is great for today, but like, it's not good enough. You should be pushing your clients harder, pushing your readers harder to experiment, because only the marketer at a company really knows their company and can sort of take that, and they should be thinking about all they could get. If they can take their AI proficiency, they're the key to these unlocks, which is where the real ROI is going to happen.
So I think that is a great way to finish this and get to our traditional last question, because we clearly we could talk to both of you for a long time, but we're at time. And
Mike, we're just getting warmed up.
I know. Well, look, we'll have you back on the show, even though this, even this is a two-parter, but we always finish with this last question. It's a two-part question. Funny story you can tell on the air and or practical advice we haven't discussed yet. You could take one or both of these, but you must take at least one.
You prepped us and gave us warning you were going to ask those questions.
We did.
Adam, did you prepare? Because I sure as hell didn't.
We're like,
what are the two questions again, Mike? Give it to us again.
Funniest story you can tell on the air, or practical advice to our listeners we haven't talked about yet.
Funniest story that you can tell on the air. I don't know.
I'm sure you're dying to tell the funny story.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of practical advice, but
I'll take the practical advice. You tell the funny story.
All right, there we go.
It's not that funny, but yesterday, I got dressed up for work. I tend to, as Adam points out, like button down shirts, and I pulled from my closet a silk shirt that I've had a little while. And it's a little dated, but in its datiness, because I'm a little dated, in its datiness, it's got this very nice silk feel. So like I've got the good 1970s look going on.
Yeah, John,
and I go to work.
Nothing on you.
Yeah, with nothing. And I go to work and I spend all day, and then Thursday happens to be poker night for me. So I played poker last night, and as I arrived, I had my coat on. As I arrived, people were like, "Oh, Andy, like looking good. Like, look at that shirt." Like, I got a couple of compliments about my shirt. I take my coat off, I sit down, and like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes after being seated at the poker table, the guy next to me says, "Hey man, you're like," he tickles my right shoulder, puts his finger in, and it's like, "You got a little bit of rip." And my entire seam of my shirt was gaping open at the poker table. And I had played for 20 minutes and not been totally unaware. And I think I had caught the shirt as at some point during the day, I had caught the shirt and ripped the hell out of it. And that's my funny story.
A lot of people are probably happy that shirt's going away. So
as a matter of fact, I stood up from the poker table. I I had change of clothes in the car, and I tossed the shirt into the rubbish.
There we
Sorry,
go.
sorry I couldn't deliver a funny story, but that's what I've got.
That's right. Adam, last to you, practical advice we haven't talked about yet for our listeners.
You know, I feel like there's the biggest piece of practical advice that we haven't talked about is it probably has to do with
read our book.
Yeah. I was actually going to say, like, my brain is going to, like, there's a notion of being curious about these technologies and not letting the fear and feeling like you're behind, like, stop you. And I'll be honest with you, like, I'll give my story in relating to the practical advice. Is yesterday I was giving a presentation on behalf of our company to a bunch of public school superintendents and principals about what does AI mean? And I don't know anything about education. So I literally built a presentation that was saying, look, I'm going to tell you what I think I would be doing if I was an AI first school. And I think the practical advice that I want to give is that as I was giving this talk, I wasn't sure as I walked in, I'll be vulnerable here. Like, I'm like, I wonder if this is like useful information anymore. Like, Andy and I spent all this time studying this stuff and getting up to speed and being in the jet stream. And I walked in thinking, I wonder, like, what if everyone like rolls their eyes and goes, yeah, we know all that already, right? So I put it aside and I wound myself up and I gave my best attempt at a, educational and inspiring and insightful presentation. And when I got done, I didn't have to wait till I got done. You could just see from the reaction in the room that no, the room didn't know any of this stuff on some level. And I think the practical advice is there's a huge gap. We've sort of talked around this, but I just want to say it directly. There is a huge gap between where 95% of marketers and companies are today and where not even experts, just people like me and Andy and other, folks at companies who have really tried to really get into this and become AI literate proficient. And my advice is you can get there. You can get there in like a month. And there's a way to do it. And I'm just saying, like, the practical advice is like, listen to Paul Reitzer's podcast, right? Read our book.
Be curious.
Yeah, be curious and
get involved.
It's not too late. There are people, not just Andy and I, there are people that can synthesize it for you. In fact, the AI can do it for you. You could go to Chat GPT and say, I want you to be my Gen AI tutor, and spend 10 minutes a day having Chat GPT in advanced voice mode while you're driving around, tutor you on AI. Like, that's my advice, is just get started and realize that you probably have a bigger gap than you realize, and it's easier to close that gap than you think.
I think that is a great way to end the show. So thank you, Adam and Andy, and thanks to everyone for listening to CMO Confidential, and thanks to our title sponsor, props.co. Look for more of our shows on the I Hear Everything Network, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, which include Your Best Customer is an AI Bot. Welcome to the new frontier. The rise and fall of Peloton is seen through the eyes of CLTV. Using AI for anticipation versus reaction, and is AI an extinction event for agencies? Hey, all you marketers, stay safe out there. This is Mike Mazin signing off for CMO Confidential.